What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Zoom call today. Welcome to Mitch Maeli Live. Welcome those on YouTube as well. We're excited to get going today. So, the topic for the day is buying a house for the price of a car. So, we're excited to share this information with you. But first, we have some announcements. We have our regional training coming up, and we have some amazing people, among them Woody Woodward, Garrett Gunderson, Bob Snyder. Just to name a few, we've got them coming to our incredible regional training that's going to be held in Salt Lake City on November 8th through the 10th. Now, this is a paid event. Tickets are $297 for VIP, which includes a whole bunch of awesome stuff, as well, including like exclusive masterminds and dinners and, awesome things. And then there's also general admission that just gets you into the trainings for $197. So if you'd like to join us, reach out to us, either DM us on social media, text either me or Mailey, and let us know that you'd like to be there. But it is going to be absolutely incredible. It's the event of the year, and we're spending a whole lot of money to put this thing on. So make sure that you're there to join us. You're not going to want to miss it. There's some awesome real estate investors coming in. We've got also some cool news. I got to meet one of my heroes today. Mailey and I got invited to be on Sharon Lecter's podcast. Now, if you don't know who Sharon Lecter is, she is the co-author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, as well as a bunch of other Robert Kiyosaki books. And she's the co-author of Exit Rich, and just an all-around amazing person. So we got the opportunity to be recorded on her podcast today. That's going to go live here in the next couple of weeks. We'll blast it out when we get the link and the date and time that will go live. But we'd love to share that with you. And then also, Sharon has agreed to come on Mitch and Mailey Live. So we're going to have Sharon Lecter here. We don't know when yet. We've got to work the details out with her. But she's going to be joining us as well. So we're excited for that. So let's get into our topic. Topic of the day, Mailey, is buy a house for the price of a car. This is something that you work on and that I work on every single day. So I can't think of anybody more qualified to talk about this than you. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the time over to my amazing, beautiful, wonderful co-host, Mailey Nelson. Take it away.
Thanks, honey. So, a couple more announcements just before I forget, because I will. I did just drop in our message chat here. So, if you're on YouTube, maybe Mitch, if you could copy and paste it and drop it into YouTube, that'd be helpful.
You got it.
But I've been asked to be a speaker and co-host for the Ignition Point. Now, I've been on there and spoke with them before, and it's an incredible venue. The owner, Sean Finnegan, he owns Tax Hive, and he owns it with Mr. Wonderful, which is awesome. So there's a lot of really big business owners that will be there. If you're wanting to like level up your business. Huh?
Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful.
Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful. So if you're wanting to level up your business and you really want to take what you're doing to the next level, I highly recommend coming. I do have 50% off codes that I can also put in the chat. Here, let me put that in there. It's just Mailey 50 that you can use, and it's unlimited right now. I know that the codes expire, I believe. They said Friday by 1 o'clock, something like that. So the sooner you get to them, that means that you get everything for like $30, which is awesome. So come hang out. It's only from 1 to 5 p.m. on Tuesday, kind of a weird time. And then they do have a VIP dinner. So if you wanted to come and have dinner with some of these incredible, influential speakers, then come hang out with us and we'll talk and chit chat and do all those fun things. All right, that's my only announcement. So today I did want to talk about seller financing, and I wanted to talk about the market. We are seeing an influx of a few things, and we're seeing the market is freaking weird, right? So yesterday I was helping a client try to purchase a home. They finally found the house that they're really excited about, and we went to get everything done. I was working with their mortgage lender, and unfortunately, they got locked into 8.2% interest yesterday. And they have fantastic credit. They have incredible DTI. Like, they're fine. They should have qualified. I mean, that's like the best rate they could get. Super frustrating that if you were to compare that same exact interest rate to last year on that same purchase price of this home, their monthly payment The difference is actually $2,000 a month. That's a lot, right? Like that's a lot of house that they're not getting, if that makes sense. And so I really wanted to talk about, frustration that's happening in the market, the days on market, what our pain points are as investors, what's working, what's not working. I actually also would like to make two more announcements now that we're on this thread. So this up to tomorrow, Thursday night, if you are in Utah and you'd like to come and hang out, we are doing a mastermind tomorrow. Mitch does his first exposure, right? First bringing people into our community. If you haven't seen us yet and you've been dying to get involved, then come hang out, right? And come learn. And then during the first exposure, or first time Mitch, the epic presentation is what we call it. During that time, anybody that wants to show up and network and talk, because that's really where the magic happens. And you'll find that you're going to want to start showing up. If you're local, it's a must. There really is, shouldn't be any excuse to not be there on Thursday nights. I know it's a huge commitment, but your community and the people who you hang out with are who you become. So if you're tired of being sick and tired, and you're tired of waiting for things to happen, and you're tired of why isn't this working, or why isn't this da da da, we call it real estate church for a reason, and I hope that doesn't offend anybody. It's because it reignites you, it recommits you to what your goals are and your mission and your why, and it inspires you to leverage other people and to talk to other people. So the first 30 minutes from 6:30 to 7, I want you to come and network and chit chat and share ideas and share deals and share money and share, right? Everything should come from our community. We will be at 300 people very soon. We're about to, so October 9th is our first meeting night, and we're going to be back at the college. I'll be sending a bunch of information out on that. But we will be at 300 plus investors again every Thursday night very soon. So let's get to it. Let's start rebuilding this community. I'm so excited. And then right after the meeting starts, we'll go into the master room. So we have this cool podcast room that we'll go into, and we'll just start strategizing. The podcast room, or excuse me, the mastermind room is designed to talk about things that's working in your business, things that are not working in your business, and then to just try and figure out, okay, what do I need in my business? What am I missing right now? And you get to talk about one of each of those personally, so we can help you grow and get whatever you need to make stuff happen. Okay. So very exciting. Make sure you're there for that. And then we'll transition here. So seller financing. How do you buy a house for the price of a car? Well, this is what we've been chit-chatting about the whole week. Actually, we've been doubling down on seller financing, and it's because it's the one strategy that isn't being affected by this crazy market that we're in, right? It's not being affected at all. In fact, it's actually helping us. So the two things, we came from a workshop last week, and it was about seller financing or creative financing, how to buy a house in this crazy market was what it was called. It was a lunch and learn. It was awesome. We had some incredible people show up, and different people than we normally have, to be honest. Like, we had all sorts of walks of life, and every single person, lenders and insurance people, and everyone was talking about the lull and how there's so many homes on the market. It's flooded right now, surprisingly, of homes, people trying to sell their house, and then they're not selling, right? They're just sitting there, and it's like, oh no. And then some houses are, and it's so weird. There's really no rhyme or reason on why it's actually happening, other than simply it's exactly what that one person is wanting, and so they're willing to pay for whatever the price is. It's interesting. So how do you buy a house for the price of a car? Well, that's what creative financing is, right? It's you get to choose exactly what you want to pay for a property. Now, Jared Bredgley, who actually just joined us, thank you for being here. He last time he was on here, he was talking about seller financing and creative financing. And his biggest point that he was bringing up was that it's interesting that most people's pain point isn't what you think it is. I'll repeat that. Most people's pain point isn't what you think it is. Everyone is moving from pain and moving towards pleasure every day, all day long, no matter what it is. And you need to figure out what that pain point is. today I was with Allison Chavez, who's also on the line here today, and her wonderful husband. And it was interesting. We were there. They found this incredible property, and I'll probably let them come, off of if they're wanting to share their story, how they found their property. I mean, you can share as much or as little as you want, but they found this deal, and of course, I agreed to be able to come and help figure out how to negotiate this property, figure out if it is a deal. And today, hopefully, what we can do is as a community, right, together here online, is figure out if it is a deal or maybe it's not a deal. And we need to decide, is this something that they should pursue? And, it actually is dear to their heart. And so it's one of those deals where it's like, ooh, it could be an emotional transaction or it could not be. And maybe it's just a deal, right? You just list it and be done with it. So anyway, we'll dive a little bit more into that. But I'm going to share my screen real quick. I don't know. Too many screens up. I don't know which screen I'm on. Let's see what happens. Hey, do you see my screen?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So let's talk about just traditional lending, just so we have a starting point. Okay. So traditional overall, right, lending, this is what this would look like. This should feel very, very normal. This should feel like, oh yeah, this is accurate. Now, this was before the rate increase that just happened. So this slide deck was from last week. So I apologize, but it has increased that much in just 1 week, which is sad. So 30-year fixed rate, 7.2 to 7.37. That's kind of where we're seeing the monthly payment on a $600,000 loan would be roughly $300,000. Okay, and that's just PI. I wasn't going to go into the PITI. Okay, if you were putting 25, now this is if you were buying an investment though, right? So this is a secondary home. So I'm going to make that clear. So excuse me. So if you were like Allison, and if you guys were to buy a house today, right, and you're like, this is my second home though, right, I'm not going to live there, and you're explaining it to the lender, this is what you would be looking at. Now, are there other options to buy a home from a lender as a secondary home? Of course there are, right? I mean, you can get a DSCR loan, which is basically you're only paying, what, I won't go into that, we don't have time. But there's a lot of other options that lenders do have for non-traditional financing. But this is just the traditional, right, blanket way that most people would go out and buy a rental property of their own. I know that Ryan's on the line. He's purchased like 4 or 5. He's almost cut off because this is how he's been purchasing it, right? This is how the normal lending institution works. Okay, so hopefully everyone's caught up. That means if you put 25% down, you'd be bringing about $150,000 to the table. Monthly, payment should be roughly almost $3,000 a month. Okay, plus you have lender's fees. Now that's not a bad thing, right? For any loan officer here, I'm not digging on this. This is how you make money. This is a business, right? So there's nothing wrong with how you do your fees and whatnot. I'm just going to do a comparison. Okay, so there's your snapshot. Feel free to take a look at that. I don't know. Okay, go back. So seller financing. Actually, let me change why I can't say. There we go. Okay, seller financing. Look, this is just one way to look at it. Now, traditional true seller financing is if you have no underlying mortgage. Okay, so like Allison and their home today, that's a true seller finance deal. Today, right, this is understanding the difference between them, but we'll dig into that. You can negotiate 5 different levers to achieve what you're wanting. So back to kind of what we were talking about with Jared. Sometimes what people actually need and want is to pay off their truck, like Jared gave in his example. They don't need $60,000, $150,000 down. They don't need that to be happy or to move on or to make this deal work. We assume like, oh, that's what I would want. But we, again, off of Woody Woodward from last week, we really do try and sell people on things that we want. And that's not actually how we should be doing it. And so we could play a fun game just as a thought process, right? We always love to play thought games on this show. So something that would be really clear to help you recognize how you actually use this every single day and maybe change the way you are doing your sales tactics. This is with your friends, your family, your loved ones. Like you do this every single day and you just don't know that you do it. But if somebody, let's say it's your birthday, I have a friend, oh, Michelle Pasquet, it's your birthday here in 2 days, right? I don't know if you're online, but so Michelle, it's your birthday in a couple days. And if I was to send her a gift, and because some of you might know my personality, you would guess the type of gift in which I would send her, or not at all, depending on the type of personality I have. Then, right, that's what would be important to me, though. I'm not usually, as a human, right? What we're doing is we give people gifts the way we like to receive gifts. Same thing comes with selling. So when you're in a situation like this, most of the time, across the board, you're going into a scenario and you're meeting up with this person at this house to negotiate these 5 different things. And all you're thinking about is the one thing that you want in your business or the one thing that you need to have happen. But you're forgetting about that there are 5 other levers here in this scenario for seller finance to negotiate. So if unfortunately at my house, I am a wonderful gift giver for my family, but I'm a horrible gift giver for most of my friends and outreach. I'm just terrible. And it's because I'm not really a tangible gift person. Like if somebody gives me a gift card, I'm like, sweet, that's awesome. You love me. That's right. I don't need something super thoughtful. I don't need, I would rather something thoughtful, like a note of like, I love you, right? Like love language is so interesting, but I'm just not a tangible thing. So if somebody bought me a gift, I'd be like, wow, thank you. And it's so thoughtful, right? Like all of those things are amazing. But it's funny that so often in our lives, if you look at your best friends, like, oh, they always give me the most thoughtful gifts. So then you're going to want to give them thoughtful gifts because that's their love language, right? Same thing comes to your partner, right? It's like, what do they need? How do they want to be loved? How do they need to be communicated to? And so same thing happens in all of sales. It's just recognizing who is the person across the table from you, making sure that you're asking a ton of questions and watch very carefully how they respond. If they're quick and to the point, you probably know they're an executive and they just need numbers. They don't care. They just need results. Just give me what I want, right? And then if they're asking a bunch of questions about all the numbers, like, well, how would this work with the numbers? And how would this work with financing? And bring up all the problems and they want to know all the details, then they probably are somebody that's an intellect. And intellects really need to know numbers. So why even show them anything else, right? Just be like, sweet, bye. I'm going to leave. I'm going to go create a spreadsheet and I'm going to come back and I'm just going to give you numbers because that's how they're going to make a decision. But luckily, with all investments, they all should be based on numbers. So I don't care who you are, what type of love language or what type of drive system that you are, knowing how to close people through numbers is very powerful. And let me show you what I'm talking about. So this is our seller finance calculator. Our seller finance calculator, this is just a mythical property. So, this isn't super helpful other than that's what it is. These are just the numbers that I wanted. So that we were working with on the last slide. If the home was 600,000, right, the purchase price, and maybe it was only worth 550,000. So this could be an actually perfect example to what Allison, what we were looking at today. So let's say it was actually only worth 550, but to get them to be excited about doing some type of seller finance deal, we're going to offer them a purchase price of 600,000. I'm also going to only offer them 10% down, which is $60,000. Could I offer them less? Yeah, I absolutely can. But I should probably have had a longer conversation of what's important to them. And if we're going off of the conversation we had with, your couple that we met with today, I would say that really what was important to them is just to have some options. They have no idea what they want, right? And unfortunately, there's 7 people involved. And so because there's 7, decision makers, they're going to need some money to split between the pie, right? So maybe more like 70,000 might be more interesting to them, because then it's like a clean $10,000 each, right? But so then your loan amount in that case would be 540. We had one of our people recently think that for some reason it didn't change your loan amount by what you put down. So we want to clear that up real quick. So if you're confused by that, it absolutely does, just like a traditional bank, right? And then let's use 7% interest as an option. Now, can we negotiate the interest? Absolutely, right? So let's actually go back to this slide. So you can, and I stole this from Charlotte Rhodes. So thank you so much for for making this acronym for us. But it's be paid, and that's balloon, right? Purchase price, amortization schedule, interest rate, and down payment. So your balloon payment can totally vary. It does not have to actually be 30 years. It doesn't have to be 10 years. It doesn't have to be 5 years. We do like to see 5 years on, as a whole, just because that gives us time to really make the plays that we want to. But you can negotiate whatever you want. Purchase price, you can negotiate. Amortization schedule, you can negotiate. Interest rate and down payment. Whereas, what is the only thing that you can negotiate if you're buying a traditional property? You can go ahead and put it in the chat if you'd like. We can get excited about this. What?
Purchase price.
That's right. That is the only thing that you can negotiate. And maybe, right? Sometimes you can't even negotiate that. And so it's so powerful to be able to say, no, I get so much flexibility here to figure out exactly what we want as investors, or what's going to make us, make sense to either wholesale this deal, to go ahead and list it if it doesn't work out, as a traditional seller finance deal, right? We can make so many options. And then on here, I put term as 40. Now with term, how cool. You could do 50 years, you could do 60 years. And really, that's just the amortization schedule. So it will just change the payment. And in this case, when I was running the numbers on this specific house that this, this Tuscan or Tuscan circle is, this is where the payment needed to be to make sense. Okay. And then, so this is a 10-year balloon. And then when the first payment would be due, right? This is the current balance. So let's say they had an underlying mortgage. Then it would be considered a wraparound or a subject to, right? Instead of a traditional seller finance deal. And if I'm like speaking like where it's way over your head, and you're going, Maeli, this hurts. I don't know what the freak you're talking about. That's okay. Probably go back and rewatch some of our other courses that we have tagged as seller financing, and you'll get really caught up really fast. Go back and rewatch the episode with Jared Brenchley for our Mitch Maeli live call. He definitely dives in, but like he really makes it palpable for everyone to understand. And then definitely go and rewatch your seller finance classes, because those will really dive in all your terminology as well to figure out what I'm freaking talking about. So hopefully you're all on the same page. But feel free to raise your hand or come off chat and be like, Maeli, what are you talking about? Feel free to stop me. So I'm just going to plunge away if not. Okay, so your PITI in this case would be $1,800 a month. So that's just essentially your payment, right? And then the difference. So this is what I want you to really look at. If your payment is $3,300 here, and this is your house that you're going to seller finance, this is why it's enticing. Okay. If your house, these are your current scenario. This is why people should be seller financing their house right now. This is why it's so fan-freaking-tastic. If this is your house and you're seller financing it on these terms, it's even better if there's no balance, right? And there's no payment. But let's just pretend like there is. You're at 3% interest. Then scenario-wise, this is your scenario and what you should be excited about. I'm going to switch slides so it actually kind of comes together a little bit better. Okay. So we can break it down. Let me move our cute faces up here so you can see us a little better. Okay. So if your current mortgage remaining balance is $220 and your term left is 15 years, your payment a month is $1,800, your amortization is 30 years, your interest rate is 3%. Okay. Now you can go ahead and seller finance your property. And you could seller finance your property and do a sandwich. There's all sorts of cool stuff. Jared just sold a property to Michelle, who might be on the line here, And that's exactly what's going to happen. They're going to seller finance their property. We can talk a little bit about that and what that looks like. Very exciting. Oh my gosh, so sexy. Like, I can't even, I'm just so excited. I'm like, what? So much money to be made right now. But this is how we get through this hard time. I guess before I keep going, you really should be so excited and be out of your mind talking to people about these opportunities. This is how you get out of a bad situation. This is how you, I was talking to a client yesterday, a potential client, and she was like, I'm never going to be able to sell my house. I need to buy a house, but I can't because I'm at 3% interest. And everything that I look at, there's nothing that I can afford. And if I can afford it, then it's, a trailer essentially. And I'm not able to purchase the house. And don't even get me started with anything that's over $750,000 here in Utah. If you're over $750,000 purchase price, now you're having to get a jumbo loan. Jumbo loans are outrageous right now. So there's a stagnance from 800,000 to 1.5 million range. They're not moving. They're just crickets right now. And it is so sad. And it's like making me want to, bah. But if people only understood this scenario, there'd be so much more movement. And this is why we're really harping on this and getting people hopefully really excited about this, because they could already qualify for whatever home they want and really look at the difference. Okay. So this is your current house. This is the home that you're like, I can't, there's no way. I need another bedroom. I'm pregnant. And, I have already 3 kids. We live in a 2-bedroom, 1 bath. I need more space, but I can't move. I'm stuck. How often are you hearing that right now in the market? Everyone, right? It's a floodgate of everyone. I'm stuck. I'm stuck. I'm stuck. I'm stuck. So instead of being stuck, this is the solution. Okay. No, this is you. This is fine. Do this to your property. You can sell or finance your house. You can say the new purchase price to this home is $600,000. It might be only worth $550,000, but somebody's willing to pay you $600,000 for this home because you're carrying the note. Okay. The balloon, make it 10 years, make it 5 years, make it 30 years. You get to choose. We have a we're offering a seller finance property in Salt Lake right now. It's a cute little condo, 2-bedroom, 1 bath, adorable little spot. And that's it, right? We wanted to do 30-year because we have a 30-year mortgage on this property. So we're like, well, seller finance it to 30 years. And then we chose, 7% interest. We low down payment to make it, interesting to somebody, right? We're getting calls left and right. Minus a renter in there, and that sucks. But anyway, payment per month. So this is $3,300, right? We already ran the scenario on that. The amortization schedule, 40 years, perfect. Interest rate, 7%. And you can change this. This is your loan, right? You get to choose what you want. And then equity. So this is what is exciting. Arbitrage. This is why you would do this. And this is why everyone should be paying attention. Take a picture of this slide. Share this, just even this little snippet with your friends and family. Your equity. The difference between this and this is $380,000. Wow. Cash flow. This is the most exciting part. $1,555 per month is your cash flow. You're going to take that cash flow and account it towards your DTI. You can absolutely 1000% use it for income. Claim it as income. Therefore, now you're going to approve for more, right? Now, the difference is 4%. From 7% to 3%. The difference is 4%. So take that 4% arbitrage and put it to your new house. If you bought a new house right this second and you're at 8%, but you put 4% on top of that and dropped it, now you're actually effectively at 4%. What? This is so exciting. Okay. Very exciting. And back to how you bought a house for the price of a car. Well, $60,000 is a car right now. Now, it might be a little bit of an expensive car, but absolutely it's a car. And I only use $600,000 because right now in Utah, that is the average home sale price. Doesn't mean though, like we just closed on a deal last week where they only brought like $32,000 to the table. Okay, cool, right? I mean, It doesn't have to be 60,000. We're just playing with numbers here, right? And whatever the client needs, whatever you need, you got to make that work and worth your time. Down payment 60,000. So by leveraging equity, right, your ROI is 71%. Isn't that so beautiful? Oh, this just gets better and better. Total cash received 533,000 end of 10 years. So not only are you getting your upfront cash, right? But also you're going to get $533,000 at the end of those 10 years. So you can take your new dream home, go get it, right? Take that $60,000, put it down towards that. Interest rate, right, technically is about 4% if you are subtracting that other 4%. And over the 10 years, you'll be paying down your current mortgage that you now, your new dream home that you live in, $533,000. Oh, that feels good. That feels really good. You should be excited about this. I'm going to take a second and pause because everyone should be so excited. Let me go back. Because Mitch, I think, has probably some fun things to talk about this. So why don't you chime in, Mitch? Have some fun with it, and then maybe we can open it up to Allison and see if they have any fun thoughts, or we could talk about with their current property and maybe run some numbers and show them how it could potentially work for them and if it's a good idea.
Yeah, for sure. Let's leave it on the slide for a second. So
Yep.
I want to know if anyone has questions on this particular slide and why it works.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. So what happens if the cash flow goes away that you've arbitraged and you're relying on that cash flow to get your new dream home? Meaning, what if your buyer ends up paying the loan down faster? Do you just take that equity and roll it into the new home and you're still okay? Or are you hurting if that cash flow disappears?
Right
yeah.
now,
So
title, you can actually make it so that they can't pay it down faster. Just as a thought. Keep going.
Okay.
yeah, I mean that's always a possibility. But if they do pay it down faster, you just the idea is rolling that cash into, into the future loan, right? This only works if you're rolling that cash into the future loan, or into the new dream home, right? And then once that's done, I mean, Ryan, you and I have talked a lot about recently recasting, right? Once we've paid down the principal, we recast the loan. Actually, you're kind of the resident expert on that. Would you mind sharing with everybody so that we're all on the same page the principle of recasting a loan?
The idea, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I don't have any slides, sorry, but the idea that I came up with between Velocity Banking and looking at other opportunities, if you don't need to, so the point of Velocity Banking, as I was understanding it, was to free up cash flow. If you don't need to free up cash flow, what other methods could work in order to continue helping you? Because why pay interest if you don't have to on a HELOC or a line of credit using Velocity Banking? So what I proposed alternatively was, if you can pay off your loan faster, you can then recast the loan every year, which lowers your payments. So if you can pay off your home extra $20,000 a year or $50,000 a year, you can go back to PennyMac or whoever and say, hey, can you recast my loan over the same 30-year span, or 29 years because now it's been a year later? And that lowers your payment so that you have more freed up cash flow, and you can either continue using that to pay down your mortgage faster, or now you've freed up some space to maybe have more leverage in case you have to reduce rent or change things up when times get hard.
Yeah. Love that. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
So Denise,
Sure.
You asked, what does recast mean? Does that answer your question? Or do you have further questions? I want to make sure that's clear for everybody. Denise, did that answer? You can either chat or come off a mute. Okay, so basically recasting, and Ryan, if you want to chime in and help clarify this at all. So recasting is, if we pay down extra principal beyond what our normal payment is over the course of a year, we can go back to the bank and say, hey, look, I paid off an extra, so we have here $533,000 over 10 years. That's roughly $53,000 a year, right? So if we're paying down an extra $53,000 a year in principal, we can go back to the bank and say, hey, will you please recast my loan? And the nice thing is, in a recast versus like a rate and term refinance, both cases you don't get any equity out, right? But a rate and term refinance will restart your amortization, which will end up costing you more in interest. And it will reset you at 30 years. Whereas a recast will take whatever year you're at, right? So if you're at year 29 and you're recasting based on that extra $53,000 you paid down, they'll take that into an account and they'll relook at the principal and they'll reamortize that over the 29 years, and then that will make your payment go down. Does that make sense?
It's an alternative into not speeding up your timeline.
Yep.
Yeah. So instead of paying it down in 25 years, you still have the total length. I think the caveat though is whether or not whoever's supplying your loan is able or willing to recast. So that might be something you want to check before you get into a bank loan.
Yes. Yeah. You got to make sure that the bank's going to be willing to recast if that's your strategy. And that's going to vary bank to bank, right? They're not required to recast your loan.
Right.
And then also, you brought up a good point, Ryan, is that will not, if you do recast, it's not going to speed up your pay down, right? You're still, so that's what you're sacrificing in a recast situation, is not being able if you didn't recast, you'd pay it down faster, right? Paying an extra $53,000 a year for 10 years, you're going to knock years off of that mortgage. But if you do recast, then that's assuming that you're planning on paying it off over that 29 years, and they'll reset your payment, clearing up cash flow. So that's the trade-off. Let's see.
Why pay it down faster in that case? Just depends on what your goals are, and if you're maybe trying to free up some more cash flow, or use the extra cash flow to maybe buy more properties. If you think you could pay something down and get an extra $500 to $1,000 in a couple of years.
Yep. It's a cash flow play.
Yeah.
I mean, there's also, velocity banking is a cash flow play, Charlotte, that we've talked about. So there's a lot of ways, and Ryan, you and I talked about yesterday in our strategy call. It's having these tools in your tool belt, right? It's when you come upon a situation, having multiple tools that you can attack the situation with is going to give you multiple options, and you choose the best tool based on the subjective scenario. So
Cool. Okay, so Allison, I don't know if you would like to, maybe come off of mute, or Mitch, if you had, maybe we could all chit chat here together. Oh, I didn't realize you hubby was still there. Sorry.
Yes, still here.
Yeah, I'm still here. I'm just,
Got to keep
Holding
up.
the baby.
I love it. So do you want to share with us, share as much or as little, whatever you feel comfortable with it, about the house that you were looking at, we went and looked at today, the scenario, and then maybe we can kind of, in a census, be like, oh, this is where we're at. So go ahead. The floor is
Great, thank you. So this is Jeremy's grandmother's house, and she passed away in June. And there's no mortgage on the house. She had 7 children, and they're all still living. And so they're in the process of trying to clean out the house, but they're pretty sick and tired of cleaning out the house. But there is one of the siblings who has a business in the basement, and he's not quite sure where to move his business. So he's trying to stay there as long as possible. They're wanting to, well, they don't know what they want, actually. They have no idea what they want. Some of them just want to cash out, and just be done with the house. Another one is like, no, let's keep the house in the family forever. But it's a great house. It's right in the middle of Murray, so it's a fantastic location. It's a beautiful neighborhood, and there is an option where we can actually like do a remodel and be able to do a non-conventional duplex and rent out the top and the bottom. But it will have to be rehabbed.
If the
in order to
numbers
do that.
work, yes, that's a
If the
possibility.
numbers work.
Yes.
What did I'm happy to share everything. What did I miss, Maili?
Oh, that was perfect. So we just
Is
need to
there something
know,
else you would like to know?
not really. I mean, maybe the others will have some, to want to chime in, but realistically, the things that we needed to know, right, is motive. Why are they selling? These are the big things that people have to know. Why are they selling? Okay, who's all involved? How many people are going to have to make a decision on this? And what's most important to them, right? We tried to pull that out of them today. And at the end of the day, we had your beautiful mother, Jeremy, that was there, right? And her whole
Yes.
thing was, I don't know.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
I have
like they
no
don't know.
idea. And so because there's no idea yet, our biggest objection or our biggest hurdle and our biggest thing that we should probably overcome is giving them something to look at, right? Just something to be like, oh, this is interesting. So a few things that I promised them today when I showed up, right, was let's give you a market data on what is selling. So they have a frame of mind before they make a decision on whether or not this is a good deal that we're going to present them. They have a frame of mind of how fast something is selling on the market. They have a frame of mind on what is selling on the market. Are they, distressed homes and they need full remodel like this house? Or are
Mm-hmm.
they fully remodeled homes and they're, beautiful and already done because people don't have time? People have 2 to 3 jobs right now. I actually heard on a podcast yesterday, Monday, um, they were saying that people now today have more than 2 jobs than they ever have before in like the last, since the last recession. That's crazy to think about. Who has time for 2 jobs? I mean, I can't even.
Well,
What?
well, and I'm also thinking if people are working 2 jobs, it's not so that they can go to Bali. It's so that they can make all of their payments and continue like their level of living. And so they don't have time, but they also probably don't have money for 50 to $100,000 remodel on a house that they just want to be able to move into.
Right.
That's what
Now,
I'm thinking.
100%. Now, there are loans out there. When we were there at Security National last week teaching, they had some incredible loans where you can actually buy a first-time home buyer type loan and get a construction loan on top of it to do
Okay.
a remodel. That's cool. There's
Okay.
some really
Yeah.
cool stuff that we can help people get into if they even know that it exists. Most people don't. And the interest rates are a little higher, and right, so it's like, oh no, the payment's going to be more, and all those things. But are they willing to do it? Are they willing to take the time to figure it out?
Yeah.
We're just not showing the stats that that's the case right now. It's not, right? So that's the stuff that I would want to show them. I would want to show them a full market analysis, a full market report on what is working, what is selling, and then how long is it sitting on the market in this condition that it's in. And then give them
Yeah.
options, right? Give them
And
options.
speaking of options,
Mhm.
remember she had said one of the rumblings she had started to hear from her siblings is they wanted to see if they could have cash for Christmas.
All right.
So, and that's when I had said, well, we can do a down, a down payment
Mhm.
of such and such,
Yep.
and maybe that's an incentive that they would have cash for Christmas if this deal gets done. So,
Mhm.
or if it's something that is doable.
Yeah,
Right.
and we had mentioned too seller financing, which people don't know about, and we're neophytes in all this as well. So for
Yeah.
most of this right now, but
Yeah.
that's okay. We'll catch up. And so we were talking about like getting everybody paid and having a balloon payment after 10 years or whatever. And her first objection was, but we're all old. So like she's going to be 70 next year. And so, they range in age from like 55 to 72 or 73. And so I think that they're more looking towards just wanting a cash out. But they also don't understand what seller financing is and what the upside to seller financing can be. So it really is like Maili was really brilliant with just like, we just want to talk and show you all your options because you
Yeah.
might just want to get a realtor and list it and just be done with it. But you might want to do some other things as well. And that's where we just want to like, we'll run numbers, see if the numbers make sense, and then you can make a decision based on that.
And did you hear how I subtly said this? And this is very important. So selling through other people is spectacular. So hearing these stories that I'm going to share, use them. right? These are real life experiences that are happening to me every day. And Jared shares his, and Mitch shares his, and the community. That's why these Thursday nights are so important too in our Zoom calls, because they're real life experiences that you can now take in your business and now use them as leverage in conversation, because people naturally will do what other people's do. It's just human behavior, right? And so I specifically said, what you will find, right? Feel, felt, found, right? You have to use that acronym all the time. This is what's interesting. One of my clients found, right, that people aren't, this type of home isn't moving, right? I gave that experience. This type of home isn't moving because people don't want to have to remodel homes right now. And so they're sitting between 60 to 90 days. And then your cute mom said, "Oh, well, I'm not really in a hurry." But then the chat, "Oh, well, but my siblings, I think, are because of Christmas," right? And that kind of came up. But pulling stuff out of them sometimes is just sharing a story. And this is what really is exciting, and is people will do and make decisions based on other people's opinions. So if you can bring other people's experiences to the table of, "Oh, well, my client just had this experience. And unfortunately, because she just got locked in at 8.2, she's not buying that house. It's her dream home, and there's no way she can afford it." Right? That sucks. Right? It's making them feel something. And then they're like, "Oh man, so the market isn't what I thought it was." It's not what you thought it was. But, and this is why the but comes in. So if you're going to share a seller finance opportunity with someone, you want to be able to show them a contrast. So if we give them two different offers, one is going to say $600,000, the other one's going to say maybe 525. Right? A cash offer might come in at 525 on the specific property, and a seller finance offer might come in at 600,000. And they're going, "Wait a second," because she said, they were saying, we talked to a couple of realtors, and they were like, "Oh, well, I think you could potentially get 550."
Yeah, and then they tossed in, and if you remodeled, you could get between 7 and 750.
Right.
And then Maylee was brilliant because she was like, yeah, yeah. And then she pulls up her phone. Here's all of the homes in your area that are listed right now, and there's 500, and nothing is moving. And once you hit 700, you're into a jumbo loan now. And so and it was just like very matter of fact, just like, "Oh, but here's what's going on." So I think people are just like, they just think, "Oh my gosh, I get $500,000 for this," and like all of that, but they're not understanding like really what's going on in the market. And so it was just, it was really beautiful. It was actually really wonderful to watch you.
But that's the key, is unfortunately, most people are going to call a realtor. And realtors, if you're on the line here, love you, right? Like, this is your job. Your job is to sell this property, and you're going to do everything and anything you can to get the listing and to sell it. I mean, that is your job. So do you. But I will say that in this market, if you really want to get the deal and you really want to claim it, learn some of these cool strategies, because chances are, if I actually show them multiple different ways to make money on this property, they actually probably would use me if I was looking for a listing, right?
Yeah.
And that's just simply because I'm giving them trust. I'm showing them the truth behind the curtain of like actually what's going on. I'm not trying to sell them a mythical dream of right. You can make 750,000 if you. It's like, okay, because you're going to do that. Like, you're not.
Yeah.
Right. So I do think that peeling back the curtain, showing them real numbers, showing them real stats is very effective. And I did say, let the numbers tell you how to make a decision. And I was very
yes, she was very
not make it emotional. Most people, especially when there's so many people involved, so many ears, so many, it's just too chaotic. So
and that's what I appreciate about you. We already talked about this, is that for me, it is emotional because it's my grandmother's house. And I have to keep trying to remind myself, just, and to have you there and Allison there to remind me that I need to stay and look at the numbers, and don't change the numbers. Just look at the numbers. And that's going to say yes or no.
Yeah. And then for your family as well. And that's beautiful, right? That's a beautiful thing, because now they're not mad at you either, right? Like, if they said yes to this deal that is on the table, you gave them 600,000 with the balloon and we need to say, 60 months for the 5 years. Like if this was the scenario and you're going to pay him every single month, like almost $1,900, right? To make this
Mhm.
happen, nobody's going to be bitter because they made the decision based on numbers, not
Mhm.
Mhm.
oh, well, but you're my grandson. Oh, well, let's keep it in the family. That's a bonus. That should be like a little like cherry on top of like, yeah, let's keep it in the family. That sounds yummy. That's wonderful. But at the end of the day, it shouldn't be based on that scenario, right? Because then no one's better. And unfortunately,
Yeah.
Mitch, I was telling you earlier, have had some issues with, because Mitch has this idea that he wants to own every property that anyone in his family has ever lived in. Right? Yes, Mitch?
What's wrong with that?
Yeah, what's wrong with that?
Not a darn thing.
Yeah, no darn thing. And that's wonderful. That's a beautiful thing that he wants, right? That's his part of his generational wealth that he wants to be able to keep all these homes within our family, and
My legacy portfolio, as I call it.
yeah, that's what he calls it.
Yeah.
That's legacy portfolio. It's so cute, and it was wonderful hearing Jeremy's stories of how you played basketball and how you did this in the backyard and how you watched birds.
Yeah.
It was just so great. It really was.
So far, I'm 0 for 2 on my legacy portfolio acquisitions, but I will
Okay,
say,
that's okay. There's still time.
I will say, when my grandma passed away, I honestly, while you guys were talking about this, I was thinking about this whole thing. So, I mean, Maeli and I, we're professionals at this, right? And so, very much approached it as, hey, if the numbers work, right? Now I kind of wish I would have done it, but none of us have a crystal ball. She passed away January of 2020. And so I didn't know that the market was going to explode like immediately after that, right? I offered $200,000 for her little tiny, old, everything needed to be redone, like literally everything. And my cousin came in and outbid me at $215,000. And I'm like, you know what? Let him have it. At least it's staying in the family, and whatever. I mean, I think it's probably worth like $450 now, like 3 years later. But shoulda, woulda, coulda. But for me, it was like, it's numbers. Like, if it doesn't work, maybe I'll buy it when he sells it. I don't know, but it did divide the family, unfortunately, which was not my intention. People aren't used to making decisions, especially when it's grandma's house that just passed away, right? People aren't used to making numerical decisions. They're used to making emotional decisions, right? So
Yeah.
just be careful with that, even though you're going in with the mindset of, hey, yes, there is an emotional attachment, but I'm staying grounded in the numbers. Remember that also, other relationships that are, a lot of which might be near and dear to you, can be affected. So my dad doesn't. He has 10 siblings. He's number 7 of 11, and I think he only talks to like 4 of them now. So because
wow.
I got outbid by my cousin. So. But yeah,
Funny because we don't even care.
It's only the ones that voted to sell it to me that he'll talk to anymore. So, sweetheart, right? I mean, that's such a sweet, sweet emotional investment that my dad made in me. But just
we don't even care is the thing.
Yeah,
So like,
yeah.
Dad, like, but anyway, yeah. So the thing that I was going to bring up to your attention was I pulled a couple reports now. So when you look at the 4 phase, like of what we do, right? So the first one is we do like broad stroke, right? And this is kind of what we did today. It was a very broad stroke. How much is it going to cost us to remodel it and get to it? And so these are the numbers that I'd real quick like to share with you. If this is going to be just though remodel, then I would, or a seller financed scenario where you're like, ooh, I can turn around and rent it, and I could sandwich it and seller finance it, right? Or I could just traditional long-term rent it. If you're going to traditionally long-term rent it on broad stroke numbers, I would say $2,500 is a very safe number for the whole house, right? And that's not even splitting it up. So you could probably get more if you did do that. But $2,500, I think, would be a safe number. Now, we'd want to verify that, right? But we could put it on contract based on that information, if you will. And when you put it under contract, you put earnest money down. But earnest money is something that is 100% not is refundable, right? And so while you're in your due diligence, which let's call it 2 weeks, your family isn't in a huge hurry. It seems like
Yeah,
some of them, but
exactly.
2 weeks isn't a big deal, right? And you could say, let's go
Correct.
down this entire rabbit hole, just throwing out ideas. Let's go down this entire idea of us actually purchasing it, and we'll put the money in an inspection that you guys won't have to pay for. We're going to put the money, right? These are all little things that it's like, ooh, wow, you're going to do all of that? Yes, I am, because I need to know all this information before I bought the house. So either way. And then if you allow me to do this and put it under contract for X amount of money, right? This whole thing that we're going to do, then I'll even give it to you, right? That's a $1,200 value, right? And really could cost you probably 6 or 8, but still for them, like if you didn't have, if they went to a traditional, company, it would cost them $1,200 to $1,400 to do inspection up to the level that you're going to get, right? And so you can share with them, like, I'm going to do a sewer scope, right? I'm going to be doing meth, mold, radon, like the whole thing, and I'm going to give it to you. So at least if we don't do it, at least you know what you're up against, right? That's a huge value add to anyone. I highly recommend getting an inspection anyway, like before they sell a house. But they don't have to pay for it. And then if that's if you're going to refinance it. If you're going to just traditionally long term do that. Now, square footage, we talked and we said that it was,
I think it's 1425 up and down.
Yeah.
So it was close to 2,900 total.
Yes, 2,900.
Somewhere between 28, 29.
Okay, we'll call it 27 just to, for giggles here. And so luckily it's just very cosmetic, right? It's not like it needs a full gut for any reason. I don't know how old plumbing is. I don't know how old electrical is. Those are things that I didn't end up looking at. Right. But ultimately it looked pretty like it's fine. Right. So I would think for $100,000, if you wanted to remodel everything, you could do it. But if you wanted to just do kind of more of a lipstick on a pig feel, right, and actually just rent it out, update the master bathroom upstairs the main bath is fine. The downstairs, probably, renovate that one, but do it very cheap, right? Do it very cost effectively. New paint, new carpet, maybe paint the outside, maybe do a little bit of love there, but you don't need a new roof, which is so expensive. Don't need new windows for the most part, which is fantastic. Even the older windows, you wouldn't have to change out if you just rented it out. So I would say that if you were to do just a traditional splash and dash, rent it out, you'd be at like 60,000 total, 50, 60.
Oh, wow.
Awesome.
Okay.
Cool, right?
Yeah.
Super different than if you're trying to remodel and do a fix and flip. So that's great news. It still add a ton of value to the home. You'd for sure get that back out, right? There's no issue there. And so that's kind of where you would be at as far as the term goes. And then knowing that if your payment is $1,897, right? Knowing that, and you could rent it out for at least 25, cash flow, right? There is cash flow.
Well, I remember going to the meeting that when we first met you guys, and you all had said you don't do deals unless you at least make 400 on a month on it, on renting.
Yep.
So that seems like it's within that parameter.
It is.
It's 500
now. It's a little bit more to down.
500 now.
Yeah. Yes. So to clarify that, it is now. But I would say, is it a lot up front? Maybe, right? And maybe that's part of the negotiation part is, gosh, we're putting $70,000 down, and we're gonna have to put $100,000 into it to get it rent ready, and we're going to do a lease back for 3 months. Right? That's a lot of just like giving and giving. Now it feels like, okay, there's got to be some receiving here. Like, what would be in it for us? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Stage it like that, right? We can totally stage it like that. And so, realistically, I bet you could all in be like, maybe 90 instead, right? Rather than saying, oh, we're going to give you $70,000 down and we're going to remodel everything. It's like, well, no, let's make that all in 90,000, and I can do all of it. So really, I'm only going to give you 50, and then I'm going to take the rest into the remodeling budget. Thank you, right? But the nice thing is, if you give them 2 different offers, one close in 3 weeks, cash offer 530. It's like, oh, and I don't have to do anything. Stop! Don't touch a dang more thing, right? Like, don't touch anything. Don't clean it. Don't try and paint it. Stop cutting the bushes, please.
Yeah.
Right. Stop doing any of that stuff. We'll take it as is. No, signed and seen, and we will. But that's 5:30, right? And maybe that's the number. I don't know the exact number yet, and I'll give you that number as far as a fix and flip goes. But as a rental, it totally makes sense as long as I think you could get that number down. I think that seems a little high to be in $70,000 down plus another 50,000 to remodel it. The ROI probably wouldn't be worth it. What do you guys think? Like, talk to me. What do you out there? Because if we go back to the original slide that we were talking about, where am I? I'm not on my slide deck. If you look at the original slide, that kind of feels more like a traditional loan. And if you're going to get a traditional loan anyway and put $150,000 down, it's like, well, that's what I'm in it anyway. So is it really, it's like, well, you can go buy almost any house and do that structure. Let's open it up for discussion here.
Still don't know. It does, because I don't know how to run the numbers on things yet. And this is why I have to rely on you guys still on a lot of that stuff. Is I'm not understanding honestly if we do have to pay out $1,900 a month for the seller finance, and then so we're making $600 a month on it, but then we have to put, like you said, down another 170,000, and we have to pay on that. Well, that doesn't seem like it's a good deal then, does it? Like you're not making anything on it.
Yeah, I guess it depends on how you're getting the money, right? Like, so if you're putting $70,000 down, and then you're like, oh, okay, and I got to come up with another 50,000. If the 50,000 is in a place where you already have it and you're not raising the capital, let's say, because it's your own, it's family, right? You're like, ooh, this is my, maybe we'll just use our own money type scenario. And I'm not trying to speak for you. I'm just giving you some.
Just like as an option if it came off of a HELOC or something. Right.
If it came off of a HELOC, it's like, okay, well then that is the numbers that we would have to run, right? Is like, okay, well, what is the cost of, what's the opportunity cost here? What does that look like? And it sounds like Mitch has something to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, so from a cash flow perspective, you have to take into account your ROI has to be higher than your interest cost, right? So you probably also want your cap rate higher than your interest cost, and cap rate's something that we'll get into on another day. But remember that there are 5 areas where you make money. So as long as you're cash flowing, right, and that's the key. You don't want your if you're taking the money out of a HELOC, you don't want your payment to be higher than what you're receiving. And by the way, side note, Maeli, do you know what the rent comps are per unit?
So as a whole, I think the house, like not dividing it up and not turning it into 2, separate units, I want to say it's about 2,500 right now is the number that is just a broad stroke.
Is that per or is that total for the?
What could it be if you did it in 2?
I didn't look, so I'd have to look that up. I didn't have time to run those comps.
And then your cash flow. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Charlotte.
My thought would be you start with the payment, and that they're talking about raising the interest rates again. So I think that those days on market are going to get bigger because they're still talking about raising the rates. And if your family wants money right now, every month, and they could say, okay, well, we could wait 6 months for this to sell, or we could start giving you all $300 a month. We'll give you 3 months to move out of the downstairs. We'll start working on the upstairs, get just the upstairs fixed, 0 down, $300 a month, get the upstairs fixed, and you got 3 months to find someplace else to have your thing. But hopefully by the time 3 months is up, you have the upstairs done. You can rent that out, and then you can do the downstairs. And they're getting $300 a month for 7 of them. That's $2,100 a month, but you're not putting anything down. And then hopefully you could cover that or come close to covering that with 1 rental, and then give them like a 3-year balloon and just say, okay, in 3 years, we're going to figure something else out and pay you out. But I would do it off of comps, and I would just say, okay, we'll start paying you next month. Like you can start getting money right now because we don't know how long this is going to take to sell. And then that way they're at least getting something, and they have they know that within 3 years they're going to get a chunk. And because it's an inherited property, they won't have to pay taxes on it.
It's true.
On the $300 a month or on the chunk? Or
No, they won't on the chunk, on any of it. They won't, because it's a purchase. So it's just a step up on the basis. So when you inherit something, the basis resets as the date of death. So they wouldn't, whatever it's worth right now, they wouldn't have to pay taxes on it because it's inherited property. Now you're gonna check in Utah. That's the way it is in New Mexico. But that way they know that they're going to start getting money, and then they'll still get that purchase price in 3 years and get that chunk. But otherwise, they could wait 6 months, a year. Ask Mitch Maeli how long some of their properties have been for sale, and it's it could just be a big question mark for them. Or they could start getting money right now, and you could get to work right now. But you also have to be willing to walk away. This is family, and if it starts to get weird, you have to be okay with saying, okay, it's okay. We'll just step away and let them deal with it.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes.
Great advice.
Thank you. Totally agree.
So remember, as you're looking at this, five ways that you can potentially make or leverage money, right? And the acronym is IDEAL. We talk about this a lot. So I stands for income, D is deductions, E is equity, A is appreciation, and L is leverage. So you when you're calculating your ROI, calculate how long you're going to be holding it for, and that may depend on your financing. A lot of this is really going to depend on your, whether you land on seller financing or traditional financing. But your income is going to be dictated by what your payment is, or what your gross rent is minus what your expenses and your payment is, right? Deductions, obvious, and that's subjective to your situation. E is equity, what the house is worth or what you force the appreciation to through the remodel process, versus what you buy it for, right? So if your remodel makes it worth $650 and you buy it at $530, then you're walking into $120,000 in equity. And then your appreciation over time, if you're planning on holding this for 10 years, then you've got a 4% year over year increase that you should be calculating as part of your ROI, right? So a rental, and then obviously leverageability as you build that equity and appreciation. Maybe you don't sell the house in 10 years, maybe you just refinance it or get a HELOC on it, and then you can leverage that to go out and buy other properties. So you have to take all of that into account. So if the cash flow is weak, you can look at the other factors and see if it still makes sense to you, or vice versa, right? If the appreciation or the equity is weak, it doesn't matter that much if the cash flow is really strong, right? So, be looking at all 5 of those areas as you're making your decision. But I love what Charlotte said, and that is, even though it's grandma's house and you love it and you've got lots of memories there, I had to walk away from my grandma's house, and that was tough. It was hard, harder than any other real estate acquisition I've ever done. But you got to be able to do it.
Well, and you also have to remember that even if they don't want to go through with it and they try to go on and sell the house, and there's not interest, and it sits for 2 months, does that mean that the option, that the chance of buying it is gone because they made the decision maybe after 2 months of sitting on the market, now they're willing to do the deal? I don't know.
That's a possibility.
I don't know. There's always a possibility. And it might not.
An absolute possibility.
And there might not. And it's okay. And it's all okay. It's because I want them, because it's family, I want them to feel comfortable with whatever happens. Yep. And to be able to still make it work.
Luckily, you did make a good decision, I think, no matter what, which is bringing in experts, right? So I was able to give them some advice no matter what today, right?
Yeah, there's no way we could do this without you guys. There's no way.
List a home in October, right?
Because we don't have enough information yet. But yes.
But just as simple as that little information is like, oh, wait, what? Because if a normal agent showed up, it's like, we got to get this in, right? We got to list this right now. And it's like, it's not going to do your home any justice whatsoever. If you're trying to list a house right now in October, it's the worst month. It will just sit there and add days on market, and it's completely worthless. So wait till November 1st. Even if it's done, it doesn't matter. Just wait, right?
Yeah.
Wait till November. You'll have a much better ploy. And
so I love having all these options. It's nice to hear everybody's, ideas, and it's good to be able to know that we can switch gears if we have to, or and again, if we're not seeing the numbers there, then we do walk away.
Yeah. But so from this angle, right this second, as I'm looking at this, I loved what Charlotte shared of, we can ask for 0% down. We can.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it doesn't feel good to say it, right? Which is why a third person like me can say it, because you might not feel comfortable being like, I don't want to give you anything for your property up front. But I can all day long. I'm fine with that. Because you are going to have to put $50,000 to $70,000 into this property to get it to be rent ready, right? You've got to put, if you're going to divide it, you got to now put a kitchen in the basement. You got to put up a wall to do and so all the numbers I was running is based on not doing a duplex. It was just single family. But even with that, so just so that we're clear, even with a single family rental at $2,500 a month, if you were to look at this difference, it's $1,900 to $2,500. Is there enough cash flow to potentially make this worth your time?
Not with taxes and insurance. Not with taxes and insurance, I don't think. And repairs or vacancies or anything like that. Like, there's a lot of other reasons why. They're going to be paying your mortgage. You're going to have depreciation. You're going to have a lot of other things that are benefits. But with one unit at $2,500, there's not a lot there. If you had 2 units and maybe you could get $3,000, then it might make the difference. But with and that's what I ran the numbers here to get a $2,100 payment with not taxes and insurance. You would have to buy it at $575 at 2% interest, or probably $600 at 0% interest. So it's going to have to be negotiated, because it's probably going to sit. And how much, and not only is it going to sit, what's happening probably is those values are going to go down a bit, especially if we go into a recession. And you have to think about that too, going into a recession, like, who can you rent it to? What I'm looking at here is Section 8, because those are guaranteed rentals. And so from the government. And so those are things that you can say, okay, well, I know at least I could get this much from, a set. How many bedrooms are in each set?
3 and then 2.
Or in each? Three up, 2 down.
So there's 3 upstairs and 2 downstairs. So right now in Section 8 here, I'm not in Albuquerque, but in Albuquerque, in Section 8, I think that the fair market rents are like $1,900 a month for a 3-bedroom, and like $1,300 a month for a 2-bedroom. So you could make it work with those numbers. But in Section 8, you don't have to make it fancy. And I don't know what the circumstances is in Utah for Section 8, but you would have to get more money out of it in order to make it. And those numbers aren't going to work, but your family has to, if your family wants to take the chance, I would just say this is the reality, and let them sit on it. And then just say, okay, be willing to walk away from it if it doesn't work, but you got to make the numbers work for you. You're not making the numbers work for them. You have to make the numbers work for you, because you're the one having to make money off of it. And so if it doesn't work for you, then it doesn't really matter if it works for them or not, because you have to present it in a way, in a salesman way of like, giving them something that sounds good to them. But in all reality, if the numbers don't work for rental, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, Charlotte.
Sorry.
No, Charlotte, you're such an incredible.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And she has a ton of experience with seller finance deals as well. She's closing up deals left and right. So this is a good person to, have and tackle on these. So let's pretend that we change this to 0% interest, right? That number does feel a lot, nicer. And the difference really doesn't make it, the ultimate of what they'd be receiving. And maybe we do shorten this so that we're
So
only
it's 2
at,
years.
and maybe we do, right? It's like, okay, you're still making $66,000. Well, really, almost $100,000 more than if you were to list it just right now. And if it's going to sit for the next 6 months to a year before it actually sells, maybe that won't be the case. Maybe you will never make this. I mean, this is such a huge opportunity for them to be like, yeah, you're going to give it to us for a 0% interest because, well, that's what we're asking for. But in return, your purchase price is this. That's wonderful, right? And
so can I ask a question about that? So if it's 0% interest and it's got a 30-month balloon, so it's a 2.5-year balloon, then does that mean we pay them out in 2.5 years, or we just have to, or the payment goes up in 2.5
I'm gonna
years?
give them a 30-month balloon. If you're having to renovate it, I would ask still for 5 years or 2. I mean, 2 years. You could ask for 2 years or 5 years, but the longer, ask what you feel comfortable with, because it's going to take you time to renovate and to get the business out of the basement, things like that. So
I ask for the most, right? I always ask for 10 first.
The balloon does mean, Allison, that you pay them out, whether you sell it or refinance it.
Okay.
And
okay. So in 30 to 120 months, then they'll get 666,000.
Yep.
Okay.
And by the way that you negotiate 0% interest on seller finance is to not bring up interest. Just say, I'll buy it from you for $530 and pay you X amount per month. And then we'll, if you say, and 0% interest, they'll be like, wait, there's an interest option? No, I want 8%, So you just don't bring up interest. You just tell them what the principal payment is going to be every month, and the balloon, right? And I just avoid talking about interest because most uneducated people won't even think to bring it up.
Yeah.
And where they put it outright, it's not even a thing anyway. But so if it's $1,100 a month divided by 7 people, they're getting $160 a month each. You know what? That's better than paying taxes on the property.
Yeah.
Right?
The payment's $1,100? No, because you're going to give them a 0 down payment. You're going to give them a 0 down payment, and so the 70, it would go back to 600. I would just say.
You're right.
So it's 600 that you're financing 600, but I would just say, you're going to give them 300. I wouldn't even go like on any of the numbers. You're going to give them $300 a month for 3 years, 5 years, whatever you guys want to say, and then I'm going to pay you X number of dollars on a balloon, whatever, 575, 600, whatever it is that you want to say. I wouldn't even talk about interest or anything. Just these are the payments, and this is the amount I'm going to pay you after 5 years or after 3 years. And then this is for you instead of being it for them, because are they savvy with, like, do they know all this stuff?
No.
Do they know, are they familiar with it? No.
No.
So really what matters to them is how much they're going to get.
Yes.
And so if you just, if you just say, I'm giving you $300 a month, plus I'm giving you 600, I'm going to give you 550 or 575 or whatever, that's simple enough that would satisfy them maybe, and it would keep it simple for you to know that you're basically getting 0% interest and you're
only paying $300
paying it down X number. Yeah, you just do your numbers and tell them what the end result is.
I love it.
Plus, you wouldn't have to come up with 70 grand for a down, plus another 50 grand to remodel the place.
Yeah.
Right. So instead, yeah, I mean, how fantastic! Yep. Come up with 0 down to do any of that. Be like,
and now you're into buying a house with a car, like a car,
Yep.
Once you're down to that 50.
But if they say, well, what if you don't make the payments or whatever, then you say, well, we're planning on putting $50,000 to $100,000 in, so you get a house that's remodeled back. and then you get a seller remodeled house, and it didn't cost you anything.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Yep.
So if we just stop making the payments, the house goes back to them, then they can list it, and then they get all the money.
Yep. No harm, no foul. Yep.
That's their
Worst
security.
case scenario. Yep.
Okay, so here's my question
You
with
could
that.
try to
So
negotiate
after
0% interest only payments. Just kidding.
Let's not complicate.
I'm like, oh, I like that one.
$0 a month. No.
We've done that.
Quick, sign this.
Yeah, exactly.
But what was your question?
So at the end of, let's say, the end of the 40 months with the balloon where they're getting paid out, we're refinancing with whom? A traditional bank?
Yeah.
Yep.
And so then we've got a mortgage with the bank, but we still own the house, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So we're still using it as a rental, or we can sell it or do whatever we want with it.
Yep.
But you can also, when you have a rental, it's easier if you have history. So say you have a 3-year history of rental on that property and you go to the bank to get a mortgage on it, it's going to be a lot simpler to get the mortgage because you have a rental history. And so you won't have to go through the same traditional kind of mortgage that you did for your own personal house.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Excellent.
It's a lot easier. And you could even do like we were saying earlier, a DSCR loan. There's a lot of more options for you from an investor standpoint if it's rented already. Like a lot more options. So.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
Fantastic.
It'd be interesting to see what your numbers are if we split it into 2 units.
Yeah. And so realistically, the next move, what I will do is just call my property management company that's in the area that serves that area. And, feel free to call if you have any, if you have, good contacts with a property management company, good to have multiple people giving you an opinion, and be like, okay, what is the most, and then what's the average, and then what's, like the median of those, and figure out what that is and be like, okay, what could I rent this actually out for? If it was.
What's the zip code?
84107.
And I would say from, broad stroke, this is a way to do it, right? You're just going to put it in Rentler or something like that. But I think Zillow can give you some ideas too. But it would be very helpful to be like, no, because unfortunately I've made some big decisions in the past based on what like Rentometer told me. And wow, when I got down to the brass and tacks of it, right, and was actually to rent it out, it wasn't what Rentometer said it was, right? So I do like to rely on the property management company because ultimately they're the ones that have to promote it and market it. Now in this case they wouldn't be because they wouldn't take on, but at least they're giving you an idea of what you could charge. You know what I mean? And that's a huge bonus too, because it's your own property. In this case, you would be managing it yourself. It's only 2, I think your first couple, manage them so that you know what you want in the future. I don't think, there's a lot of our education that wraps stuff up with don't ever don't ever do your own property management. Don't ever do all of these things. But I kind of disagree a little bit in the way that it's like, yeah, but for instance, if I wouldn't have ever managed my own short-term rentals, I wouldn't have known all the little things that I was looking for in a property management company. I wouldn't have known the value. I would have been pissed that I was paying them so much money a month rather than being like, oh, that's so grateful, right? Just the little nuances of managing it yourself for a minute. It's actually kind of nice, and it does save you a good 10 to 18%. So it helps with your numbers here.
Right. Right.
And it's non-conforming, so you're not going to be able to use a property management company. But
Okay. And but plumbers and people who can fix so that we can call them if something goes wrong. Excellent.
luckily, that's what Thursdays are for too. So you can surround yourself around people who,
Right. For sure.
Cool. Well, good. I think that's all we have for tonight. I mean, I think it's worth going down the rabbit hole. I do. I think it's past, the number, what we say is $500, right? It's past that number of, what? We could get this to be a seller finance deal. this could be a cash flowing property. Could this actually work for me? And if this was my deal, I would say it's past the first section of running the numbers, seeing if it would be worth my time continuing down the rabbit hole. It would be worth it to me to continue. So I would assume it would be worth your guys' time as well to make that the next step. So now we got to go get a little bit stronger numbers on exactly what it would cost to, make this happen. So maybe bringing out a contractor and being like, okay, if I'm going to make this a duplex, because that's the only way it sounds like it's going to work, right, for cash flow perspective, then how much is it actually going to cost me for plumbing and for, rerouting all of this stuff and making a secondary kitchen, adding a second, laundry room, adding another wall, adding a different door structure for the basement, right? Like, okay, how much would that actually cost me?
The for that zip code for fair market rents for Section 8, and what Section 8 is like they're on the list for years and years, so they're not going to come in and mess it up, because if they mess it up, then they get off the list and then they can't get back on, and they've waited 5 years to get a house. And so, the government money comes whether we're in a recession or not. So the fair market rents would be for a 2-bedroom would be between $1,500 and $1,600 in that zip code. For a 3-bedroom, it would be between 2,061 and 2,204. So you could, if you had a duplex, you could get around $3,700. $3,500 if you had a duplex. If you had just a 4-bedroom, it would be 5-bedroom, whatever. I think it would be around $2,500 for, if you just didn't want to do the whole, because that's expensive, I think, to add another kitchen and all of that. But it's guaranteed, and some people have vouchers that pay the entire amount, and some people have vouchers that pay a portion of it and then they have to pay the rest. But at least that portion that the government's paying, you just get put into your account every month.
Is it a pain to get the house on Section 8?
Actually, it took me, the last house that I did it, I just put it on, and I didn't have a date that it was going to be available yet. And then you get people looking at it. And so I have the one tenant I have moving out at the end of this month. I won't even be there. And I already have a couple of people that want to move in, because the list is so long. Like, there's people waiting and waiting and waiting for property. But, of course, it's not, you don't have to have you don't want it in a high crime neighborhood, and you don't have to have it fancy. But at least it's something, in my opinion, I'm learning about it, so I'm no expert on it. But in my opinion, given where we are in the economy, when you have the medium range houses that are not, super expensive, you have the medium range houses and you're able to get a good payment on it, having the government guarantee the payment, I think, is a good deal.
I agree.
Because they're long-term renters. The people that rent through Section 8 stay a long time. Now, you have to do things like you have to make sure the windows have locks and the doors have locks and everything. I mean, the basics. They'll come and inspect it once a year, but it's not anything extreme. It's what you should be doing anyway as a landlord. But in my opinion, given the economy right now, that's the way I would do it. Even if it was just the $2,500, even if you weren't going to do two.
Guaranteed fines. I like that for sure.
But you awesome. call the housing authority there. You can call the housing authority or look it up in Utah, and in New Mexico, you can just, even if your house isn't available, you can put it on a wait list, and it's visible, so people can see it even though it's not available yet.
With the government, do you know, with a Section 8, is it okay if it's what is it called, non-conforming, a non-conforming duplex?
We'd have to find out.
I don't know what that is. What do you mean non-conforming duplex?
So it doesn't have 2 separate meters. It's all part of the same house. So that's.
I don't know. I guess maybe it would depend on whether or not you're going to pay the utilities or not.
Okay. I hadn't thought about that.
I could talk about this stuff all night, but unfortunately we're out of time. So Allison, we'll have to continue. We'll have to continue just kind of one-on-one, but let's have you back on and have you report on how this is going. We can kind of track progress as we go. But guys, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Allison, thanks for letting us use your property as an example here, and hopefully you guys learned as much as I did. This was awesome. So we're going to be back next week. We have a student coming on joining us next Wednesday, Linda Jensen. She had I believe it was a $150,000 day last week from wholesaling a property that she owned for like 3 minutes. So she's going to talk to us about her story. She's going to share with us some of the amazing strategies that she uses to make money. Make sure that you're here. Mark your calendars. This is every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. Just type Mitch Maeli Live into your browser. It'll drop you right into the Zoom call. Otherwise, you can join us on YouTube Live. For those of you on YouTube Live, thanks for being here. But guys, until next week, stay hungry, stay healthy, get out there and do some real estate, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much.